Welcome back to another edition of the Mock Draft Show. Today we're talking about the playoff contenders. We finally are going to cover everybody not named the Falcons. But before we get started, as y'all see, I got my boy Armand back with me. What's up, Arm?
What's going on, Nate, man? How you doing?
Man, waiting to see what these boys going to do in 2 days. I deal with them tomorrow. So we're going to
Yeah.
knock out the teams that don't have a lot to really concern themselves about going forward. But yeah, we me and Arms coming together to do the last. So it's what 10 teams I think we have from 22 to 32.
22
So
to 32.
Say it again.
Yep. The last 10. Yep.
Yeah, this is the last 10. These are the teams that are from that all we either made the divisional playoffs or won a Super Bowl. Of course, the Eagles won a Super Bowl. But yeah, can you believe we are 48 hours from the draft?
No, man, I'm excited. The draft is a great time every year. It's a lot of noise, that's coming out for different teams. This isn't as strong as at the top in the past, but nonetheless, there's a lot of good areas where teams can address some specific needs.
Okay, I agree with you on that. I'm looking forward to it. This is a pretty deep draft, so I'm intrigued to see what these playoff teams are going to knock out before. Let me see this. Adam said, "Sam Brown, you better update that, sir."
Shout out to my boy Adam, man. Appreciate you joining.
Yes, sir. Shout out to Adam. But the first team we're gonna cover, everyone, is gonna be the Los Angeles Chargers. But I'm gonna let Arm go first. How do you feel about the Chargers going into this draft?
The Chargers, they will be going into, I believe, their second season with Jim Harbaugh as a coach. They really overhauled the offense last offseason, getting rid of some, marquee names such as like Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, who is now back with the LA Chargers. But going into this offseason, they made the playoffs last year and lost to the Texans. Going into this offseason, they're really committed to, ground and pound football. They brought in Najee Harris to replace J.K. Dobbins. I think they'll still need to, fortify the defensive line a little more. They also could use a playmaker at tight end that can help Justin Herbert out as well. And I think they could use a receiver, but I don't think they'll go with their first round pick. How about yourself?
I agree. I like what the Chargers surprised me, but I got to give props to Jim Harbaugh. He tends to find a way to make a team a contender again quick. I mean, he did it with the 49ers, especially coming from the situation with the Michigan Wolverines winning a national title and then coming back to the NFL and taking the team back to the playoffs initially. But we kind of got similar needs as far as the Chargers. These are my needs, just to go ahead and discuss them. First thing is tight end. The Chargers, they signed Tyler Conklin, but of course, who's Tyler Conklin, man? Let's be honest. I'm not even trying to
1 year deal.
Right. I'm gonna bring the depth chart up too while we talking about them. But this is Green Bay. Excuse me. Let me come out of this for a second. But again, who's Tyler Conklin? To be honest, you're not banking on your future with Justin Herbert throwing the ball to Tyler Conklin. I mean, Will Dissly had a good year last year. He had a couple of decent games, but I mean, at the same time, that's not your surefire number one tight end. Going long term, bring it back up now. I got the Chargers up there. Let me scroll down. As I mentioned, you see Conklin is their starter. Will Dissly is their backup. Tucker Fisk is their third string. So nobody scares you at that tight end position, and that's just the God honest truth. If you are the Chargers, so the Chargers could see them possibly look at a Tyler Warren or Colston Love at this spot, if they're still there, to be honest, or they could draft a tight end later in the draft. My next one was pass rusher. They lost Joey Bosa to the Bills. They still got Khalil back. You still got Bud Dupree, but let's be honest, those guys are at the tail of their career. So now you're in a situation where you are in a premium position to upgrade that spot. As y'all see, they run a 3-4 defense. Oh, they brought in Deshaun Hand. Okay. But as you see, they don't really have their talent. Their talent up front don't really scare you like that. But they would have to definitely upgrade that position. They solid at linebacker, but their current 3-4 defense right now have Tuli Tupulotu and Khalil Mack, the veteran, on the outside. They need to get a pass rusher if they can possibly get one in the second. They possibly go in there in the second round. What's going on, Ryan? My third D, as R. Mitch, he said similar, was wide receiver. Lad McConkey broke out, had a good year. Who's their receivers outside Lad McConkey? None of those other guys are your true number one receiver or number two. Mike Williams is back, but I mean, Mike Williams was the number two guy to Keenan Allen. So these guys are going to probably definitely look into upgrading their position at wide receiver at some point in the draft. It's probably not going to be at 22. Is it 22 correct? They're going to be at 22. So I don't see them upgrading it there, but they will probably get a wide receiver at some point in this draft. And then my last need, well, two needs similar is surprisingly running back. Najee Harris, not a bad option. But look at the backup options. You got Hassan Haskins, Kamani Vidal, and Jared Patterson. None of those guys are your change of pace back. So this is the draft to get you a change of pace back. I could see them potentially look at a guy like a Tutton from Virginia Tech because they need somebody that can change the pace because Najee's your bruiser. So you need that opposite side running back. But what do you think about just looking at that depth chart? Is there anything that just stands out to you on either offense or defense that you like they may have to address this need?
Well, I definitely think tight end is an area that they can address. I think they can get that potentially in the first round, but I believe if Colston Loveland is not there, I think that they will go in a different direction. I think offensively they'll be committed to running the football, but on defense, I definitely think addressing the front seven with the defensive line. You look at their five techniques. They got Deshaun Hand, they got Alto Agbanania, guys that really are like rotational players. Really aren't difference makers up front. They also, like you mentioned before, they have Khalil Mack and Bud Dupree, who are, towards the end of their careers. Tuli Tulupalatu was pretty good last year that they drafted out of USC. So they could use a younger rusher, maybe in the middle rounds, but I think they will probably either go with tight end or the D line for their 22nd pick.
Okay. And just to give you guys outlook, that's what both of us feel about the Chargers. But some of the mocks stated, USA Today, I went to a couple of them. So USA Today actually has them trading up to 16 with Arizona to take Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. CBS Sports, Pete Prisco got them going. Kenneth Grant from Michigan. Statpole got them going. Jahdae Barron, the corner from Texas. Josh Edwards had them going. Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. Mike Ritter got them going. Colston Loveland, as you mentioned, the tight end from Michigan. Garrett Wilson got them going. Kenneth Grant as well. Trapasso has them going. TJ Sanders from South Carolina. And Walter Football has them going. Kenneth Grant from Michigan as well. So sounding similar to what we are thinking. And Adam said this is a prime Browns trade-up spot. How do you feel about that?
It's definitely on the definitely could be an option. However, this pick is behind Pittsburgh. So if you want to jump Pittsburgh to get a quarterback, then you're going to need to trade up above 21. But I think the pick here would most likely be either Colston Loveland or Kenneth Grant for Michigan. Just familiarity, with Jim Harbaugh, running the program. But if I had to pick who potentially would be there, I think it'll be Colston Loveland.
Okay. I can agree with that as well, though. That is the Chargers that we're discussing. We're gonna move on to the Green Bay Packers. The Packers, as y'all know, made the playoffs. They lost in the wild card round to the Philadelphia Eagles. But let Arm again jump it off. How do you feel about Green Bay going into this offseason?
Green Bay is in an interesting spot. I know last year they had a lot of injuries. Jordan Love, battled an ankle injury throughout the year. I know they brought in Josh Jacobs last offseason as well. I think, from a historic standpoint, I know that Green Bay has always been committed to the trenches as well as the defense when it comes to the first round of the draft. They drafted Luke Van Ness last year, the pass rusher from Iowa, who had an okay season. I think there's still some potential there, but I do think that they're kind of in a position where they have a lot of solid to good players, but I don't think that they have a dynamic player. And I think Jair Alexander is on the way out. He was a top corner. Just seems like there was just some internal discourse that didn't work out with him. So he'll be on the move most likely. But I'd expect them to most likely go on the defensive side of the ball with their 23rd pick.
I agree. I'm gonna bring up the depth chart. So as we talk about some of the needs I looked up and researched on them. So similar to what Arm said, we kind of got similar needs. My first one was corner. Like Arm mentioned, you've been hearing that there's rumblings that Jair Alexander might be gone from Green Bay. So look at their corner room right now. Nate Hobbs is a okay corner. He's not a great corner. Do you look at Keeson Nixon? You look at Kamal Hayden, like this group is not good in the secondary. They lost Eric Stokes this offseason. They lost Corey Ballantyne this offseason. They lost Robert Shell this offseason. So these guys definitely will be looking at a corner at some point in the draft, even if it's not at 23. Also, defensive line, like you said. So this is as weird as this sounds. On paper, the Packers' defensive line looks good on paper. But the weird thing about it, their best pass rusher had 7.5 sacks, which is crazy. They were in the top 10 in sacks, but they're a pass rush by committee defense. Whereas they don't have that, like Armand said, they don't have that true superstar on either side of the ball, if you ask me. So that's a position where in a deep draft for the pass rush, you definitely could look into. And I want to say they just transferred to a 4-3 defense, if I'm not mistaken. They used to be 3-4. So as y'all see, the pass rush right now is Kingsley and Ingabera. I don't know. I'm not even gonna try his last name. I'm sorry. You said what now?
Egnabari.
Okay. Rashad Gary, of course he's a solid pass rusher. Then they got Devontae White and Kenny Clark. So they don't have like pressing needs at the defensive tackle position, but they do need to address that. This might low-key be the number one need on the team, wide receiver. Christian Watson is their wide receiver one, but he's coming off an injury. The other guys are good receivers. They're not great receivers. They're not nobody where if Jordan Love to throw the ball to win the game, looking at their receiving core arm, do you see anybody on that receiving core that you like, I got to feed him the ball at the end of the game at their wide receiver core?
If it was anybody, it'd probably be Jalen Reed. He got up to a really good start last year. I think he also battled some injuries down the stretch. Christian Watson, he's a great player from a height, weight, speed standpoint, but he's been injured a lot. He's had some issues with drops. Romeo Dobbs, I think last year had some issues that he was complaining about getting the ball within the offense. He actually asked for a trade, but they didn't grant him that. But I do agree that they have a lot of number 2 wide receivers, number 3 wide receivers. They don't really have a definitive number 1.
Totally agree with that. And also the guard position, they were turning 4 of their 5 starters. But if y'all have noticed, Elton Jenkins used to be a left guard for Green Bay for years. They moved him to center this year. So this would be the time for them to upgrade a guard position. They actually have a really solid offensive line. They were one of the healthiest lines in the league this season. So upgrading that guard position would be key for them. But before we get into the rest, let me hit the comments. Ryan, he's a Packers fan, said we need wide receiver corner defense. You in the same ballpark as us. Alon Sizemore said the Steelers will win the draft guarantee.
Shout out to Alon. Appreciate you, bro, for joining.
And Brother Rails said that the Packers need a bona fide wide receiver. Yes, they do. They need those two things would put them in a really good spot to be a contender in the NFC. Because they're not bad. The Packers are like one or two moves away from really being a consistent threat in the NFC. So if they can make a good move, they definitely see themselves in a great position going forward in 2025. So is there any other needs looking at the offensive depth side of the ball for the Packers that you think they could consider in this draft?
I know they drafted Jordan Morgan last year. Looks like he was playing inside. I know they're big on tackles. They've done a good job, in the middle rounds getting guys. So that can be an area of need. A sneaky need would be running back. Josh Jacobs had a really good year last year, but he's had a lot of wear and tear on his body. Shout out to Kyle. Shout out to Abe too. But I think running back could be a sneaky need. This could be a really good, surprising pick for them. I don't think historically that's what the route they would go. But if they wanted some more explosion on offense, he could be there. I don't know if he will, but Travion Henderson would be an interesting draft pick. I think he fits kind of like the Green Bay Packer, but I don't think they'll go there. But if they went offense, I could see them going with a Travion Henderson as a surprise. But I think he might go a little earlier than people expect.
I agree with you. I agree. I was going to say running back also as a sneaky need because Josh Jacobs is Josh Jacobs. If y'all are fantasy football players, then Josh Jacobs was a guaranteed 2 touchdowns each week. So Josh Jacobs won me some games last season. I love me some Josh Jacobs, but they definitely could use another like a change of pace back. And this is a deep running back draft, so this would be a perfect time for them to do it. But just to go give y'all an update on what some of the mocks are saying, Walter Football has been taking Matthew Golden in number 23. That'd be scary. I ain't even gonna lie. I would love to see Matthew Golden in Green Bay.
I don't know if he's gonna be there.
I don't think so either. I think Dallas is taking him at 12. But CBS Sports got Prisco got him taking Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan. Christian Prosper got them taking Princey Umana. How do you say that man last name? You don't talk about the pass rusher from Ole Miss.
That's a little early.
Yeah, that's super early. Mike Ritter, yeah. Mike Ritter has him taking Tanner McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona. I don't think he'll be there by that time. I think he'll be gone.
That's a big drop.
Yeah. Edwards has him taking Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle from Oregon.
That's a traditional Green Bay pick.
You got Stackpole got them taking Donovan Ezeraku, the pass rusher from Boston College.
I can see that too.
Yeah, Garrett Purdell got him going. Jahdae Barron, the corner from Texas, and USA Today has Michael slipping to them at number 23. And let's see, Adam said Packers should take Walter Nolan just based. I would like to see Walter Nolan in Green Bay also.
If he's there, I could see them taking him. I know they've invested a lot at linebacker, but I do think that they really need a corner. So just don't know who's going to be there. I mean, Will Johnson, he's been all over the place, to be honest, because people don't know how fast he can run. They're saying he's more of a zone corner. If I'm not mistaken, I think the Packers play a good amount of zone. So I think he would be a seamless fit for them going into the draft. So we'll see. The Packers need a playmaker.
Yes, sir. And I got a shout out to Ryan. I know he's tuned in. I asked a couple of fans that are fans of these teams to make me a mock, and Ryan, he actually did one for us. And this is what his mock draft was for Green Bay. So look like he actually has Green Bay moving back to trade with Kansas City at some point because they're picking number 31. So he has him going Luther Burden at 31. Dante Thornton, another wide receiver. That's addressed the wide receiver need. Cornerback, Kobe Bryant. That's not a bad pack up at all. Say good. My bad, Ryan. This is a good pick. Deion Walker. That's one of my underrated favorite players in this draft. Defensive tackle. Taking Tyler Barron later on, Jared Ivey, Melo Dotson, and RJ Oben. I like those picks. I like that pick.
This is interesting. This is very interesting. The two first picks are receivers. So if this hypothetically did happen, I would think that one of their receivers is going to get dealt during the weekend. Because Luther Burden, really good in the intermediate, areas, short intermediate. Dante Thornton is a height, weight, speed guy. And I see that he traded back with Kansas City, so looks like he got 31 and 63.
Yeah.
So he traded up. Okay. I like the Walker pick. I like the Walker a lot. I like the Walker pick a lot, but this is heavy defense on the back end. So good pick, good solid pick because they need a lot. But yeah, I like the Burden pick, and the Thornton pick could be good, but somebody would definitely be traded or cut.
Totally agree with that. Before we transition, let's see, you got another comment. Hey there, sis. She said, "Oh, this is that football talk." Shout out to Court, man. This is my co-host on the other show that I'm featured on, the King's Court podcast. Where everyone is first time on here, tune into that. We have another show. Our next episode is May 16th. If y'all can tune in at that time, that's one of my co-hosts. Shout out to her. But transitioning on to the next team, we're staying in the NFC North, going to the Minnesota Vikings, everyone's favorite winnable loser. I hate to call them that, but they always produce a winning season and underperform in the playoffs. I don't get it. Me and the Vikings, I have a love-hate relationship with the Vikings. But I'm going to let Arn talk about them first.
Yeah, so the Vikings had a really good season last year. They definitely overachieved. They had, I believe, like 7 or 8 wins that were within one score, 7 points or less. Obviously, they had Sam Darnold last year, who had a resurgent year. He's now with the Seattle Seahawks. They drafted J.J. McCarthy last season, who sat out for the whole year because he had a torn meniscus. So he is now their guy, even though they did flirt it with the possibility of bringing in Aaron Rodgers. They lost a couple of players in free agency on defense. They're also getting a little old on defense. Harrison Smith, the longtime Viking at safety, he's about 36 years old. So I think that can be an area that can be addressed. We'll talk about that in just a moment. They did bring in Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave as some reinforcements on the D line. They have now shifted they're still running a 3-4 defense under Brian Flores, a wonderful coordinator. I think they'll take a step back this year just due to the offense, but obviously they still have the best receiver in football, Justin Jefferson. Hopefully Jordan Addison can, continue to make strides as well. They have Aaron Jones. Hopefully TJ Hawkinson will be healthy this year as well. And hopefully Christian Darrisaw will be back too because he got injured down the stretch.
I totally agree. The Vikings roster is really solid roster. As Arn mentioned, they do have a couple of needs that they really need to address. But the one concern that I have for the Vikings heading into this draft, they have the fewest picks in the draft. They have 4 picks. They got 4 total picks in this draft. But again, they made a couple of solid moves. They definitely upgraded on defense, bringing in Jonathan Allen and Hargrave. That defense should be even scary. They were good last year. They should be even better this year. And as mentioned, they also got a couple of offensive line issues that they can address. We're going to finally see, I don't know if J.J. McCarthy is going to actually hit the field this season. Or will they?
He's gonna play.
He's gonna play, or could this be a veteran quarterback? I can tell you a vet that's not gonna be there. But We don't know. Could A-Rod still be a potential move right here? We don't know. We'll see. But some of the needs that I have for them, the first one is interior offensive line. As you've seen, their left guard is the biggest issue right now. Blake Brindle has no reason to start on any contending offensive line whatsoever. They did bring in Ryan Kelly and Will Freeze. You still got Darisaw and Odell on the outside. They got to get them a guard in this draft. I don't think they'll do it in the first. Potentially they'll do it in the second round. But who knows? We can see. Interior defensive line, although it may not seem like a need right now, why not make the rich richer? Get you a young defensive lineman in there to learn up under Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave. And you can possibly upgrade the nickel tackle position, because I'm not the biggest fan of Harrison Phillips. I don't know how you feel about him. I'm not the biggest fan of Harrison Phillips. This could definitely be a good move for a defensive tackle at this point in the draft. Maybe not at 24, but possibly with one of those picks. Cornerback, Byron Murphy, solid corner. But then you got a lot of unproven guys. You got Jeff Okudah. You got Isaiah Rodgers. You got a lot of guys who may not be your starting. They're good role players. They're no CB2s or CB3s. They're like solid. They're productive. They'll be good with a pass rush. And of course, they have a pass rush. So they're not terrible, but I don't see them they're not locked down either. So this could be a position that they can look into. As Arm also mentioned, safety, Harrison Smith is not a spring chicken anymore. This is the perfect Malachi Starks or Dick Amon spot right here if you're the Vikings, if they're both still on the board. Linebackers of sleeper need. They got Blake Cashman and Van Ginkel. However, those two might be considered as pass rushers. But you look inside the interior, Blake Cashman and Ivan Pace Jr. is not guys that I'm considering as my starters. There's a stat linebacker. This is a stat linebacker draft. I think that's very underrated, considering the fact that so much is going to go in that first round. Day 2 and day 3 is going to be, you're going to be looking at linebackers like, he's left. So this is the premium time for them to get them a linebacker in this draft. And a sleeper need is running back. Yes, Aaron Jones is their starting running back right now, but who's backing him up? Ty Chandler.
Yeah, they got Jordan Mason. I forgot to mention that they traded with the 49ers to get Jordan Mason. So that was a good pick.
Oh, yeah. I think Jordan Mason played well when he got in for San Francisco last year. I still would like to see them get something. I don't think it's going to be, this might be a UDFA thing. This may not be a draft night thing. This could be you stayed on the board all draft. We're going to pick you up and bring you in. So I can see that very well being the case for the Vikings. The mocks for them, Walter Football got them going Nick Amon-Warry. USA Today got them going Jahdae Barron. CBS Sports have them taking Maxwell Harrison, the corner that blazed the combine from Kentucky. Two of the pundits got them going there. Mike Renner has them going Malachi Starks. Josh Edwards have them trading completely out of the first round due to the 4 picks. Statpole got them trading down to 30 to take Graves Bell, the offensive lineman. Padel has them taking Nick Amon-Warry, and Prisco has them taking Malachi Starks. So as you see, they kind of like us. They kind of saying they're going to be in a spot where they're going to take a safety or someone in the secondary. But do you think it's any other needs that may not have been discussed here that they possibly could consider down the road?
Down the road, I can see a tight end being something to look at, maybe as a developmental prospect. I know you mentioned like the interior of the line. I'd also mention wide receiver. We know Jordan Addison has had some issues off the field in the past. That a wide receiver that can be a developmental prospect can be of note here. If you scroll down to the defense, I definitely think cornerback and the secondary is an issue. That definitely needs to be addressed first. And they're in a weird spot because they only have 4 picks. I do think if they stay at 24, I think that they will take a secondary player. I think Malachi Starks will be their target center field with range. He can learn under Harrison Smith, who's entering like the final years of his career. But I think that they'll trade. I think this could be a trade out spot, just because their next pick isn't until the third round. So honestly, I would expect them. Their next pick is in 97. So I think that I could see them possibly, most likely trading back with a team who may be trying to target a player late in the first round. It could be a team that is looking at offensive linemen. There will be a run of offensive linemen towards the end of the first round. There could be a run on running backs potentially as well, or defensive linemen.
Totally agree with you. And I definitely would love to see them get like a splash player right here as far as a deep threat. I like the Jalen Royals mentioned, Adam. I could see them looking to getting a speedster right here. They could go Monterey Ball from Baylor. They could consider the drop legend from UGA, Arian Smith. But they could definitely look at a wide receiver at this spot, a slot receiver at a middle point of the draft. So I agree with you. I could definitely see wide receiver being a sleeper move that the Vikings consider. But that's our spiel on the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to move on to the AFC now and talk about the Houston Texans. The Texans had a weird season last year. They barely made the postseason. They did win the wild card game, and then they went to Kansas City and gave them a tough game, but lost per usual. The Texans always play the tough team. The great team's tough, but they end up finding a way to lose. But what's your thoughts on the Texans going into this draft?
Another year. CJ Stroud, he had a little bit of a setback sophomore year, but I think he kind of got it together down the stretch a little bit. He got hit a lot. Their offensive line was very bad. One of their best linemen, Laramie Tunsil, got traded to the Washington Commanders. They also traded Kenyon Green, who was one of the draft picks from the Deshaun Watson trade. He didn't perform up to standards. And also, I believe Tyus Howard, they also let go as well. So their offensive line is really he's actually the left guard still on their team. But he's not that good either. But nonetheless, they got rid of Stephon Diggs after he got injured. Tank Dell, unfortunately, tore up, possibly every ligament in his knee once again. Just a really sad, situation because he's one of the more explosive players in the league. Defensively, though, they are there. D'Amico Ryans has coached up that defense. That combination of Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter is a problem. They actually brought in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, which I think will bring a lot of fire to the secondary. They signed Derek Stingley to a 3-year extension. Jalen Petrie as well. So I think their secondary is set. I think their first round pick will be strictly focused on offensive line. Strictly on offensive line.
I agree with you 100%. I'm going to bring some of the D's that I had put for them. Definitely, we're on the same page. Offensive line, I put tackle as a need, but still offensive line. Because when you look at this offensive line, when Cam Robinson and Blake Fisher is your starters, that's a problem. Juice Scruggs is your starter, that's a problem. Jared Patterson, these guys are totally unproven. CJ Stroud was running for his life last season. It was a frustrating thing to watch for CJ Stroud. Despite all that, they made the postseason. Joe Mixon had a good year. So, but they got to upgrade. And this is the draft to really load up at that offensive line position if you're the Texans. So they definitely got to get some talent in there on that offensive line, especially like Arm said, losing Laramie Tunsil to the Commanders. The next need is surprisingly defensive tackle. As great as that defensive unit is, and they are great. I mean, they don't really have a lot of holes on this defense at all. That defensive tackle spot really needs to be upgraded if you're Houston at some point in this draft. If you can get you a young piece on that defensive line, they might be arguably one of the best defensive units in the NFL. They really can upgrade one of that size. They run a 4-3. So if you can get you another starter, you brought back Sheldon Rankins, who was really solid for the Texans in 2023. He didn't really do much in Cincinnati, but I mean, he knows that scheme now. So coming back to Houston, he should be a productive guy for him. But I really think they should look into a defensive tackle. Now, on paper, you're like, why do they need another running back? Until you look at what's backing up Joe Mixon. Look at his backups. None of those backups scare you. Damian Pierce straight up got his job taken. He's just chilling. He gets in the game on Madden. He don't get in the game much in real life. I'm sorry. J.J. Taylor and Jamar Jordan, you guys are not. These guys are not a running back too. And in a loaded running back draft, this ain't gonna be a high need, but get Joe Mixon to change the pace back. So where you give him a couple of breaks on them carries, because one thing about it, when he get the ball, he's gonna get the ball. So that's nothing. And another sleeper need is wide receiver, as we mentioned. Tank Dell had an unfortunate injury. We don't know how he's going to look coming off injury. Nico is Nico. I'm not the biggest Christian Kirk fan. That's just me. I've never really been a big Christian Kirk fan. But look at the rest of wide receivers. Braxton Berrios, Justin Watson, John Mechie. I'm not going to sleep on John Mechie. He make his plays. But get another wide receiver. They really need another piece for CJ Stroud to throw to on as far as on outside as Tank Dell continues to recover. Let me see some of these comments real quick. Tam said that it goes to show you the Texans are well coached, and Katie said you don't even play on bad. I'll try to cut him a little slack. But yeah, they definitely use another wide receiver. And also just to mention to you, the mocks agree with you as far as this is definitely going to be a wide receiver, an offensive lineman spot. USA Today got them going. Josh Simmons, your Buckeye, Arm know him very, very well. Walter Football has them going. Josh Connolly Jr. from Oregon. Multiple pundits from CBS Sports either got them going. Tyler Booker from Alabama. Josh Simmons from Ohio State. Gray Zabel from North Dakota. And the only person that has a different pick is Christian Prosser has them going Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle from Oregon. But they kind of all lead into what we've said. And, I got to ask again, is there any need that you feel that has not been addressed that jumps off to you as a potential need for the Houston Texans?
Honestly, I think we've covered for the Texans. I think we've covered everything. I think the offensive line is the main area. I definitely think getting maybe another weapon sometime in the draft, a receiver. It doesn't have to be here, but my prediction is that I think this pick will be an Ohio State Buckeye. It just depends on which Ohio State Buckeye you want. There was a guy that wasn't mentioned that I think that could be in play here, who is Donovan Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
Donovan Jackson had versatility. He was primary as a guard. I think the big need for the Texans is interior. In the interior, quarterbacks don't like interior pressure. CJ Stroud, he's a classic pocket passer. Jackson bounced outside to tackle in emergency situations and played there well. So I think my decision will be Donovan Jackson, but I would not rule out Emeka Egbuka here from Ohio State. But I would, yes, the Ohio State University, national champs, by the way. But yeah, we're gonna go with Donovan Jackson from Ohio State.
Okay. I like that though. I like that for Houston because they definitely upgrade the offensive line in general from my boy CJ Stroud. But all right, we will be moving on to the next team, going back to the NFC to talk about the Rams, who are the Rams. I don't know how in the world they found every way back in the position they were in. They made the playoffs. They beat the Vikings, and they played a good game in the snow. They nearly beat the Eagles in the snow. But what's your takes on the Rams? Excuse me, so far.
The Rams had a surprising season. They got off to a rough start. There was definitely talks about trading Matthew Stafford, potentially trading Cooper Kupp, who's now with the Seattle Seahawks. They got it together. They got healthy. Nakua was out for a little bit. I think going into this offseason, I believe this is the first time the Rams have had, or maybe that was last year that they had a first round pick. I think it was last year they had a first round pick in a long time. So going into this offseason, they got Devontae Adams, which was interesting on offense. I think that offensive line is an area of need. I think there's been a lot of discussion about quarterback with the Rams. I don't know if they will do it in the first round, but I think if he was there, I think Shador Sanders would be a great fit with Sean McVay. He'll play inside, be in LA, but I don't think that he'll be there. I think that they could look at Kyle McCord in the later rounds. Defensively, I think they could use some help in the secondary. They have a really good pass rush with Jared Verse, Byron Young, and also I believe it's Brandon Breesy plays for the Saints. Brandon Fisk from Florida State, that's on their defensive line. But I think cornerback is an area of need. They don't really have a playmaker in that spot who can lock down one side of the field. And they also could use maybe another receiver as well, just on the perimeter. I think Tutu Atwell has mentioned that he'll be more involved in the offense this year. So those are my areas. What about yourself?
All right, we'll get into it. Tam said the Rams built so weird. Well, coach, I guess they go D tackle corner. Okay, I like those moves. Kingpin Dunn, what's going on, brother? What's going on, man? Hey, this is one of the other co-hosts on the King's Court podcast. Again, as I mentioned the show, if y'all tuning in, May 16th be there. Adam also said that he liked them as a Will Howard team. Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting move. But I think we kind of in the same ballpark. Some of the needs I had for them was offensive tackle. When you look at the Rams right here, Haverstein has been there forever, but he's getting older. On the other hand, you got Alaric Jackson. He's getting older. So you really could upgrade this offensive line at this spot. Tight end, Tyler Higbee been hanging on for dear life for forever in the Rams uniform. They definitely need to get a young tight end in that scheme for certain if I'm the Rams. Linebacker is another need that I said that they could address. They got Byron Young, but they could use some interior. I forgot they run a 3-4. Their interior linebackers definitely could be an upgrade. They did pick up former Falcon Nate Landman. I think he should be pretty productive out there for the Rams, but you still could use another solid linebacker in that scheme. Another need we both agree on. Look at that corner room. That corner room got to be one of the worst corner rooms in the NFL, and I am not even trying to bash this team, but I don't know if I've seen many corner rooms worse than this one right here. They really need to get a corner. This could very well be their pick at 26. Is getting a corner. It could be a Barrett or a Hairston or somebody in that ballpark. Safety's another spot that could be considered. You got Cam Carroll and Cameron Kitchens, who are both young and kind of unproven. These are guys that you very well could upgrade at that spot too. So, and I also agree with Armand with Matthew Stafford being close to retirement. Do not be surprised if this become a shocking pick for a quarterback. Backing up Jimmy Garoppolo, he's not going to be a starter. And former national champion Bulldogs Stetson Bennett. Don't think my boy gonna ever get onto the field in the Ram uniform. I'm sorry, but they're probably going to get them look at a quarterback potentially at this spot if you're the Rams. Some of the mocks have stated Walsh Football got him taking Jahdae Barron. USA State has him taking Colston Loveland. CBS Sports Wilson got to take Trey Amos, the corner from Ole Miss. Trapalso has him taking Jalen Milroe from Alabama. I don't like that move for them, but okay. Mike Renner has him taking Jackson Dart, the quarterback from Ole Miss. Edwards has him taking Maxwell Harrison, the corner from Kentucky. Stackpole has him taking Shador, as R mentioned as well. Garrett Padell has him taking Maxwell Harrison, and so does Pete Prisco. So they kind of matching around the needs that we said that the Rams have. So would you see? I know you mentioned wide receivers. Any other spot that you kind of would say maybe they can look into this with those 8 picks?
I definitely think offensive line. We kind of talked about that. I think Blake Corum will have a bigger role in year 2. I actually liked him a lot coming out of Michigan, so I think he'll have a bigger role. In regards to tight end, I think they could use a tight end. This is a good class for receiving tight ends too that can move around. I know he's not a first round pick, but it would be very interesting to see like Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green with the Rams.
Oh, that's my guy. I love him.
He would be a very fun player to see in a Sean McVay offense. Just him, doing, in motion, because that's a high octane offense. So those are the needs that I think that can be considered to address.
I'm not gonna lie, Harold Fannin in that offense would be a little scary. That might be he would be a fantasy sleeper if they was to go get Harold Fannin in that offense. I agree with you 100% on that. And I think we're kind of in a similar boat. That offensive line definitely can be addressed. You really got to.
They got to get a corner. I think the Trey Amos pick or Maxwell Harrison will probably be more realistic.
I truly might even go corner. My secondary might be my first 2 picks from the Rams, because the Rams are they're in a weird spot. They're in a weird spot is that secondary in the division that they're in and in the NFC. If you're going to go up against these Eagles and Vikings and teams that are a big threat each year in and out, then you definitely are going to have to get a corner of some sort, or they're going to be picking on you all game when you get into these deep playoff runs like the Rams have been in going forward. So that is our take on the Rams. And up next, shout out to our group chat HGS. We're going to be talking about the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens. Another team who got some pressure in the need to produce something going forward. Because, I mean, we know they're going to be a threat in the AFC, but that's not even what we're here to talk about. We know what steps they need to take, but how are you feeling about the Ravens and what are they going to have to do? I know they're in your division, so keep it clean. Well, how do you feel? What do you feel they're going to have to do to really take that next step to be a Super Bowl threat in the NFC? I mean, AFC.
They need a lockdown corner. Simple as that. They need a lockdown corner. I also think, they just got to get over. It's kind of even hard to say even about getting over the hump. They need a left tackle, because Ronnie Stanley is getting towards the end of his career. He's came back last season and had a solid year. I mean, the Ravens are one of the best drafting teams in the NFL. They got DeAndre Hopkins, who I think can be a solid third receiver. Rashad Bateman started to flash last year. Kind of his ability. Zay Flowers has always been a really good receiver there. I think their offensive line is really good. Just from a talent perspective. Isaiah Likely is next in line in tight end. I think, Mark Andrews, will take a reduced role. Obviously, we don't have to say much. They got Lamar and they got Derek. If you go defensively, their front three are solid, with Matabike at one of the D tackles. They got Travis Jones, who's serviceable too. I can see that. Obviously, they got Roquan Smith, who's the heart and soul of that defense. They got some project guys with like Owe and Ojabo. I think that they've had moments, but they haven't like transformed into like that dominant pass rusher. I think Kyle Van Noy had a really good year last year, but he's like 34, 35. But cornerback, I mean, I think Marlon Humphrey is kind of getting up there. I'm not a big fan of Marlon Humphrey, but that's another conversation for another day. But Kyle Hamilton's a dog. Nate Wiggins, being his second season. They brought in Chidobe Awuzie. But I think corner is the big need. And as crazy as it sounds, they could even look at a running back. Just because, Derrick Henry's, he's older, but they can use somebody who's, a younger back to just take the load off of him and Lamar.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let's see. Tails said get Lamar Will, number one receiver or corner, just need to win. Adam says Zombie Cleveland probably needs to address tight end with Mark Andrews' future in question. Not Zombie Cleveland. That nickname is hilarious. But I can agree with all similar needs. I had guard, cornerback, safety, wide receiver, and pass rusher. As far as guard, when you look at the guard situation, Andrew Voorhees is not a starter to me. You could definitely upgrade that. Daniel Falele may be good, but he's young. I don't really know what his potential is right now because they're a young group. As Armand also mentioned, cornerback is definitely a need that they definitely can look into. They brought in Awuzie, Marlon Humphrey. Sometimes it can be hit or miss. Nate Wiggins is young, but I mean, they could very well still use a corner in this spot. Safety along the opposite side of Kyle Hamilton. Ardarius Washington is not him. No, you need to get you a safety in this draft if you're Baltimore. I don't like that opposite side right now. Wide receiver is probably every team. Let's be honest. Every team in the NFL has that one need their team just don't want to address. And for Baltimore, it's been wide receiver. They've addressed 750,000 receivers, and it's nobody that just like sticks out that stands out. Zay Flowers solid. Not gonna take anything from him. Bateman had a career year, but I mean, it's clear Zay Flowers was the better wide receiver on the team out the gate, and he's been there a shorter time. They brought in Hopkins. We'll see what Lamar can do with Hopkins, but I still think they need to really get them a true number one. You don't really look at nobody on this team and say they're a true number one. And then, of course, the one thing that is very weird with the Baltimore Ravens is the lack of a true pass rusher. You got Kyle Van Noy, the veteran. I mean, you got Tavis Robinson, you got Owe, you got Ojabo. Nobody has – Baltimore predicates themselves on having that true pass rusher, and I don't think they have that. They have solid pieces in other positions on this team, but you don't see that true pass rusher. And I think Baltimore's really missed that. This could be a move. This could be a James Pierce Jr. Pick right here. I know Arvin's thinking right.
Oh man, I was looking at the board too. I was like, he probably gonna be there, and that's just They would take him.
He definitely could be there. This could be a Walter Nolan, Nick Scorton, Donovan Ezraku possible spot right here if you're Baltimore. Adam also said a kicker. They do need to look into a kicker because
not first round, but yeah,
not the first round, but yeah, him. We're not even gonna go into detail about it, but y'all know what we're talking about here. But as far as the Ravens, the mocks are basically stating Walter Football has them going Malachi Starks. USA got them going Grazer Bell, the guard. CBS Sports Prisco got them going Donovan Ezraku. Padel got them going Tyler Booker from Alabama. Stackpole got them going Malachi Starks. Josh Harris got them going Walter Nolan. Mike Ritter has been going Josh Conley Jr. Trapasso has been addressing the corner with Darian Porter from Iowa State. And Ryan Wilson has him going James Pierce Jr. But before we talk about any possible other needs that the Ravens could use, and be shout out Armand again. He made us a mock draft for the Ravens to see what they could pick with those picks in the draft. And what do you think about this board?
It definitely seemed like the Ravens drafted like the Ravens. I mean, Jaheed Campbell at 27 is a great selection to put him right next to Roquan. I mean, sideline to sideline gonna be covered. Donovan Jackson being at 59 is unfair. So that's just unfair. Kyle Kennard is a high level pass rusher. He didn't have the best like combine numbers, but he's still a solid pass rusher. The pick that I really like here is that's underrated is Jaden Blue. He's a receiver running back out the backfield. I think if you watch the Arizona State game in the playoff, he is really, really good and deadly on wheel routes out the backfield. So I think he can be a really good addition as a change of pace because Keaton Mitchell was supposed to be that running back, but he kind of, got injured last year and, still kind of, getting back to his 100%. So this is a really great draft. The Ravens, I think that this could be the Ravens' year to finally get over the hump. I think that the Chiefs, I believe the Chiefs have had their run. We're going to get to the Chiefs, but I think this could be a year that the Ravens could potentially break through.
I agree. If they were ever to make a move, it would be this year. They definitely need to take advantage of the fact that the Chiefs kind of got punched in the mouth at a point. And they got punched in the mouth in the Super Bowl, so they kind of got to reset. There's no clear-cut favorite in the AFC right now. This will be the time for them to take advantage of it because you never know who could be around the corner to become that next AFC playoff contender. So you definitely want to take advantage of it while you can. But if they was to hit this would be a great draft for Baltimore. They'll hit some key needs. Aaron Smith would be a interesting pick right here at wide receiver. You have another deep threat at that spot, but they would definitely hit some big needs if you're Baltimore with this draft. I like this draft from Dunn. Solid one that you can tell is definitely coming from a well-researched fan from the Baltimore Ravens. But we'll finally give Armand a break of talking about the Baltimore Ravens. And we'll move on to the next team, going to the NFC. And another team that's in a weird, tricky situation, the Detroit Lions. The Lions, great regular season. It couldn't have been a bigger disaster in the playoffs, losing to the Commanders. And then they lost two of their coordinators. I mean, this team's in an interesting spot. How do you feel about the Lions?
They are in an interesting spot. They lost both of their coordinators, Ben Johnson coming the head coach of the Chicago Bears, as well as Aaron Glenn, moving on to be the head coach of the New York Jets. Both, still a talented roster. I actually was listening to a podcast that was actually talking about rumors of like Jameson Williams potentially being a trade candidate, which was really interesting because I know he has 2 years on his deal. But offensively, they're really good. There's no doubts about it. They have the slot machine, Amon St. Brown. They got Baby Gronk and Sam Laporta. They got Thunder and Sonic and Hedgehog, Jamar Gibbs and David Montgomery. The quarterback, Jared Goff, he had a really good year last year. Unfortunately, he got injured in the playoff game with the concussion. That I think really impacted their season. But they impacted that game. But overall, injuries destroyed this team. Yes. Especially defensively. I think losing Aiden Hutchinson was a killer blow with the broken leg. He should be back. They just had a lot of injuries on defense last year. I know Kyle is in here somewhere waiting for me to probably hear what I'm going to say. But nonetheless, they do have some good players on defense. I do like the DJ Reed signing to fortify like the secondary. Brian Branch is a Swiss Army knife back there. Terrion Arnold kind of he has some ups and downs. I think he'll have a better year in year two. But nonetheless, they need defensive line. They need a pass rusher. Um, next to Aiden, and we don't know how Aiden is going to bounce back. I think Aiden will be okay, but they definitely need a defensive end that can come in and make an impact.
Totally agree. I got similar needs. I had linebacker as their top one of the needs. This is a deep. I have not stressed this enough. This is a deep linebacker draft. If the Lions was to upgrade at that spot, this would be the year to do it. You can upgrade. Jack Campbell's not a bad linebacker, but I would definitely upgrade the Alice Azzalone spot. I've never been a fan of Azzalone. I don't know why. I just have not been a fan of him. I would absolutely upgrade this spot. This would be a Barrett Carter, Small Mundan, some of those guys. One of the Ohio State linebackers in this position could be smooth for them. Definitely agree with the pass rusher because with Aiden Hutchinson coming off of an injury, you really don't know the state of what he's going to be like coming off of an injury. Marcus Davenport is not truly he's not a legit other option at a pass rushing spot for me. This is a great spot. Also, this is a similar spot for Pearson, Scorton, and Nolan and those guys like that to be on the board at 28. Let me see who else. Defensive tackle. You're actually okay at defensive tackle right now, but I could understand getting a guy later in the draft that could maybe learn up under McNeil and DJ Reader. But I actually they're okay at this spot. And another one I put up there was guard. I put guard up there as well. They're actually a solid unit up front, but I still think they could absolutely upgrade at guard to make that offensive line continue to be stout and block for Sonic and Hedgehog as we mentioned. Wide receivers, another spot that I said that they could absolutely upgrade because, truthfully speaking, Amon-Ra St. Brown is excellent, but they could really use another wide receiver, especially not knowing if Jameson Williams is going to stay. I also heard similar reports about Jameson Williams being potential trade bait this week, so that could be something to watch out for. And if he is, get you a wide receiver that can truly complement Amon-Ra St. Brown. This is the time to do it. You probably still going to have your pick of the litter right here at wide receiver. You're going to have possibly a Luther Burden at that spot. So that could definitely be something to look into if you're the Lions at 28. The mocks currently got for the Lions at 28, and that's kind of over the place. They got Landon Jackson from Arkansas, from USA Today. They have them taking him. Walter Football has another Ohio State guy. You got to say his last name for me. JT, what's his last name? I don't want to mess it up.
Tumalialu.
Okay, what he said. CBS Sports have them taking Shamar Stewart. One of them has taken Shamar Stewart. Another one has them taking Nick Skirton. Mike Renner has them taking Kenneth Grant. Josh Edwards has Michael falling to this spot at 28. Stackpole has them taking Tyler Booker. Garrett Padell has them taking Derek Harmon. Pete Prisco has them taking another Ohio State player in Donovan Jackson at this spot. So those are the picks that they kind of are saying. Do you think it's any picks that we have left out on for the Lions that you think they could potentially look into?
Potential needs. Okay. This actually just crossed my mind. This might be very controversial, but I have to look at where the team is at now. Quarterback can be potentially in play, and Jared Goff, he is a good, solid quarterback, but I believe that there's limitations. And I will say, the one quarterback that I believe that can possibly take their team to the next level if he has time to sit will be Jalen Milroe. If he can sit, learn, and really, learn the game, I think that could be A surprise pick, I don't think it's likely, but quarterback, I believe with their team now, with having the structure in place, that they can afford to possibly let a guy sit like a Milroe who has high, upside. But I do think that they need a pass rusher. I think that's more of the need. And I think they will go in Milroe's a high character guy, so he would fit right into the Lions team, but I don't know how the dynamic will be having a guy, in waiting while you have a quarterback that's there. But I think that that's something that the Lions really will have to consider. That might be more of a consideration than I think. But I would look at Jack Sawyer from Ohio State. Dan Campbell is a guy who's really gritty. He likes these, hard-nosed guys. I think that Jack Sawyer, if you know Ohio State, after he was one of the big, leaders, especially after the Michigan game. I hope, Detroit embrace him. He's a great guy. But I think he really galvanized that locker room. It helped us go on that run to win the national championship. And I think having him on the other side with Aiden, I think that will give them like a relentless defensive line of pressure. So I'm going to go with Jack Sawyer, but I will say Jalen Milroe is pretty tempting if he's there at 28, just because you don't see a lot of high upside quarterbacks that can potentially sit and learn and have the opportunity.
I agree. I like that take on it. And I got to throw up, shout out to my boy Antoine. I should have made this a little bit bigger. This is his mock for the Lions. He haven't taken Michael at 28, taking Andrew Makuba at 60. That'd be a nice safety tandem with Makuba and what's his name? From Alabama. Josiah Stewart, a Michigan player, he's a Michigan fan, so I can see that pick right there. Nick Nash, another wide receiver, like Simeon Barrow, the defensive tackle from Miami, Jimmy Horn Jr., and Jabbar Muhammad. How do you feel about this mock?
I think it addresses a lot of needs. Definitely edge rusher. I think they'll double dip there. I think if Mike Kell is there, I definitely think they'll take him. I don't think he'll be there. I do like the pick of Mukaba, a safety who can kind of move around a little bit. Offers some Swiss Army knife capabilities. Josiah Stewart is a relentless pass rusher. He's a little undersized, but I think he'll, could be a nice energy. Went to school in the area. Nick Nash is a possession receiver. I think they already have one of those already in St. Brown. But I also know that they kind of need a guy, I think, that can stretch the field, preferably. But I think that's maybe what Jimmy Horn's role would be. But I think it's a good draft for where they are.
I agree with you 100%. And that's our take on the Lions. Up next, we get into the teams that lost the conference title games. The first one is the Washington Commanders, who personally, for me, outside of Denver, this is another team to watch out for that's on the rise in the NFC. So they're gonna be a threat. We actually, my Falcons are gonna actually play them in Atlanta this season, so that's gonna be intriguing to see what this team's gonna be with a sophomore year of Jaden Daniels. And they brought in a couple of pieces. They got Tunsil, they got Debo. I'm intrigued to see what this Commanders team like. But how do you feel about the Commanders heading into this draft?
They have a great quarterback moving forward. However, I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about the rest of the roster. They do have some pieces, but they said that defense, they got a lot of guys that were on 1-year deals that played really well and were older players. So the great thing, they have the quarterback, but they have a lot of patchwork to do on defense. They had Bobby Wagner, they got Marshawn Lattimore in the trade. Hopefully he'll be able to perform better this year. Zach Ertz, was a revelation in the playoffs. They got my boy Scary Terry that's there. They acquired Deebo Samuel. I'm not really high on Debo. I think that his best days are behind him. I do think the Laramie Tunsil acquisition was really good. If you look defensively, um, Jonathan Allen was out last year, so he's gone. They brought in Javon Kinlaw and Eddie Goldman. I know they still have Deron Payne, who's been a staple there. Hopefully, Jers Newton will be able to step up. I really think Mike Sanger still from Michigan was a really good slot. I think he's more suited for the slot and not a boundary corner. But I do believe that they need to go defense here in the draft. They only have 5 picks, too, so I could also see them potentially trading back to get more picks because I think although they made that run in the playoffs last year, I think that they could potentially be they could take a step back because now they're not the surprise team, and now teams have film on Jaden. But he's still prime time. So, what's your thoughts on the Commanders?
Okay. Yeah, I'm in a similar spot with the Commanders. I think the Commanders are very close to being a big threat in the NFC. We had kind of similar needs. They definitely need to address that cornerback room. They got Marshall Lattimore, but outside of Marshall Lattimore, there's nobody else on that defense that can really lock the other side of the ball. They have talented players. They don't have great players in that secondary, and that's something they really got to address. They got to get a true pass rusher. They run a 4-3 defense, but when I even look at Dietrich Wise, Doris Armstrong, none of those guys jump off the chart to me as that I got to double team him. He got to be the guy I have to focus on, or it's going to be a long night. They don't have that guy for me. They don't have that guy, and they got to address that at some point in this draft. A very underrated need that they brought up was tight end. Zach Ertz was outstanding for him last year, but Zach Ertz is not a spring chicken. He definitely did good. This is a very good pass catching draft of tight ends. You got later because of course they probably won't get one of the top tier guys. You could look at a Gatson from Syracuse in the spot. You can look at Mason Taylor from LSU potentially as a tight end they could pick up. So they definitely need to get a young tight end in there for Jaden Daniels, even though you still got Zach Ertz, but you still could love to get a young guy in there to learn upon a veteran like Zach Ertz, who's actually been at a point in time in his career one of the top tight ends in his league. So you definitely like to look into that. Linebacker, the linebacker position, one thing, if you know Dan Quinn defense, he predicates it off of that linebacker core. Yes, they got Lou was solid for him last year, but Bobby Wagner is getting up in age. He may not even be there no more than next season. So they definitely need to get them a linebacker to man that cross the middle. And like I said, this is the draft where linebackers will not fall off the board super early. You can address it later in the draft. So if I was them, I'm definitely going to address this later in the draft. Maybe day 3 possibly, but you need to get it at some point in this draft. And last but not least is offensive lineman. And go to the offensive line. You did get Laramie Tunsil. You definitely could still look into upgrading the middle of the offensive line. Wiley still isn't the greatest player at right tackle, but you could possibly upgrade some sides of this offensive line because with a mobile threat quarterback like a Jaden Daniels, you do not want him to fall into the CJ Stroud spot from last season. You definitely want to get him some help while you can get him some help. This is the prime time to do it if you're the Commanders. But the mock drafts have them looking at, we have 2 people from CBS Sports got taking Buka to add to that wide receiver core. You got 2 guys have taken Donovan Ezraku, the pass rusher from Boston College. Stackpole has taken James Pierce Jr. Christian Paul has taken Tyler Warren, the tight end. And Wilson has taken Grace Zabel, the offensive lineman from North Dakota. USA Today has some taken Nick Skirton. And Walter also has some taken Donovan Ezraku. So they all kind of in that same ballpark that we're saying. Is there any slept on needs that we haven't hit on, in your opinion, for the Commanders?
Oh man, the Commanders. Let's. I think it's defense. I think they need a lot. They brought in Andrew Wiley in the offseason as well. I mean, he's okay. I think maybe running back. Could be. I know Brian Robinson had a really good year, but Austin Eckler is pretty old. He was really good last year, but I know they're kind of old in that area. But I think that could be like a later round selection. But I think the defensive line, Dan Quinn is a defensive line coach, so I can see him, looking at maybe a guy with some traits. I think Shamar Stewart would be really interesting here. Um, but yeah, there will probably be some defensive ends that will be available. But personally, I am not as high on the Commanders as others just because their team was really like I think they found lightning in a bottle with some of their other players, not Jaden Daniels, but I don't think that those players can play at that high level again. Like, just to be honest, and I think that just now people know what to expect from the Commanders now. So I don't know if they'll win 12 games next year.
Understandable. I don't. Yeah, it's gonna. That's always the thing about contenders in the NFC is, or even in general, can you follow up from the previous season? So that's going to be something to watch out for. I agree with Armand 100% that this is going to be something to watch out for if you are the Commanders fan. But it's a fun time in Washington. You should be excited. This could be a fun season ahead for the Commanders. So we'll see. But moving on to the other team who came very close, the other team outside of Baltimore who just cannot get past that Kansas City hump, the Buffalo Bills. So close to being the team that goes to the Super Bowl. How do you feel about them?
Yeah, the Buffalo. I feel bad for them. Like it's just like wow, you can beat the Chiefs in the regular season, but you can't beat them in the playoffs. And defensively, you always come back to defense. They just don't have that difference maker on defense, specifically on the defensive line. I know when Myles Garrett was asking for a trade, Buffalo was the first team that I thought about that if they could finance the money to get him, I thought he was gonna potentially be a Bill. But Buffalo has 10 picks. If I was Buffalo, I would try to trade up. I would try to trade up from 30 because they have 10 picks. Even if they need to trade a pick next year, I believe that this is a draft to potentially trade up to get a defensive end that can make a difference. If they feel comfortable with possibly James Pierce being there at 30, they could take him. But I would try to trade up if I can, if I was them.
I can agree 100%. Let me pull up I'm going to pull up their depth chart. Let me get to their depth chart real quick. But yeah, the Bills are the team is good enough to be the threat in this conference. I mean, they're good enough to go to a Super Bowl. They really should have gotten to one by now, to be honest. But I mean, I understand the Chiefs dynasty is right there. But just to bring up my needs, you got cornerback, wide receiver, pass rusher, safety. So we're gonna scroll down to the corner room. That's what we're gonna start at. As you see, look at the corner room. They brought back Tre'Davious White, but oh god.
I know it's so bad.
This is bad. This is bad. They definitely could upgrade in this secondary immediately. Truthfully speaking, they could definitely upgrade the secondary if you're the Bills. They're gonna have to upgrade it at some point. Wide receiver, like I said, Josh Allen is amazing. He made a lot. He made a lot work with the lack of receivers that he have. They got Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Joshua Palmer. This is not a good wide receiving core in Buffalo. They need a true wide receiver one. Please get you a wide receiver for Josh Allen. Please do. You just paid him all that money. That'd be a waste of time to not have a true number one wide receiver. Pass rusher. Let's go back down to the pass rushers. They lost Von Miller, but they brought Joey Bosa in. So I don't really feel like they are in a desperate need for a pass rusher right now, because I think Rasul and Bosa is going to do just fine. I could honestly see them more so going to get another defensive tackle over a pass rusher, but I can understand. I see what they're saying. And definitely, possibly their number one need is a safety, because Damar Hamlin, not your true starter. He had a better year last year, but not your true starter. Taylor Rapp, no. Cole Bishop, still unproven. Derek Forrest, still unproven. So they definitely could upgrade this position in this draft. They got to do it if they plan on really causing any problems in this conference going forward. But the mocks had the Bills taking Maxwell Hairston from USA Today. Walter Football has them taking Siobhan Ravel, the very underrated corner from East Carolina. CBS Sports, Wilson got to go on Malachi Starks. Trapasco got to go on Kenneth Grant from Michigan. Renner has them going Maxwell Hairston. Edwards got them going Kenneth Grant. Stackpole has them moving up to 24, like Armand mentioned, to go take Nick Amonwori. Garrett Padell has them going Malachi Starks, and Prisco has them taking Siobhan Ravel from East Carolina. So they're all kind of in the same ballpark that we're in as far as the Bills. You got anything left to say on the Bills before we move on to the Super Bowl participants?
I would pick a corner here if I was Buffalo, if I was at 30. I think Siobhan Revel from East Carolina could be a good pick here. I'm not sure where their second round pick is located. I know they did trade their third round pick to the Browns for Amari Cooper. If they could, find a receiver like an Abuka, but I know they just paid Khalil Shakir. Yeah, and I know they have some issues with James Cook as well because he wants to get paid. But I think they need to get a defensive end that can really, impact the game and get to the quarterback, because I think that's what's been preventing them, for beating Kansas City.
All righty. And speaking of Kansas City, let's move on to the team that got their heart broken on the national stage just a couple of months ago. The Kansas City Chiefs are coming with 8 picks in this draft. How do you feel about it? Where do they start to bounce back to that dynasty level that they were on leading into that game?
Well, I definitely believe that they'll definitely need to upgrade the offensive line. I think that the Eagles had a one-of-a-kind defensive line that utterly destroyed the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line. But that line has been a problem for maybe the last 2 years. Jawan Taylor has not been a good free agent acquisition. Trey Smith is good. Creed Humphrey's good. Kingsley Sumatala has been a disappointment. They moved him into left guard. Jalen Moore was a signing. I think that their focus should be offensive line here. Great thing. Hopefully Rashee Weiss will be back. I think they missed him a lot. I know they brought in DeAndre Hopkins, who really was a non-factor. Hopefully, Xavier Worthy, he had a great Super Bowl. They also have Travis Kelce. I think they can use a tight end that can come in and possibly be the successor to him. And I think offensively, the skill players, just to be honest, even a running back could be of interest. Defensively, I think they're good. I think defensively, obviously they got Chris Jones. I think George Karlaftis is a budding star. They still have Nick Bolton. Trent Duffy is a lockdown corner. They have Christian Fulton, who's came in. They also have Brian Cook and Jaden Hicks, who've done really well. So I think that their defense is pretty stacked, especially with Steve Spagnuolo as the D coordinator. What are your thoughts on the Chiefs?
Yes, I can agree there. And we got similar needs. This offensive line got to be upgraded, especially at tackle. Because let's be honest, if Kyle Shanahan wasn't such a choke artist, the Chiefs could have lost the last two Super Bowls. Because that San Francisco defensive line got to Patrick Mahomes as well. But they found a way to win. But last game, the Eagles just had a field day with that offensive line. They really didn't have an answer. They also they could upgrade on both sides of that line, to be honest. Jawan Taylor, as Armand said, have major disappointment. Jalen Moore, I'm not really the highest on Jalen Moore, but I think they could very well still use the double up at tackle. They lost, I cannot remember which one was his name. They lost Tooney. He went to Chicago. That's where he went to Chicago. So now that's where Kingsley stepped into that spot. So the offensive line definitely something that they can look into as far as offensively. For me, I do agree they could use another running back. You can't keep going to get Kareem Hunt off the couch and think he's going to go in there and give you 10 touchdowns, which he's done it. But you got to get you another playmaker. Definitely could still consider a wide receiver, even with Rasheed Rice return that could be later in the draft potentially. Defensively, as Armand said, I do love their defense. I do think it could absolutely upgrade one more spot on that. Pennell and Dano definitely could be an upgrade on that side because I love Karlaftis and Chris Jones. But at the other side, I could definitely see a potential young piece coming in there to replace. Christian Fulton's a very good pickup. You also got him out there with Trip McDuffie. You could possibly look into a nickel corner at some point in this draft. Safety, you still got Brian Cook, Jaden Hicks, but you lost Justin Reed. So you possibly could consider adding a safety at some point in this draft. But I think we all kind of got similar needs with the Chiefs. The mocks have the Chiefs projected to take. They got Josh Simmons. Pete Crisco got Josh Simmons. Fidel got Josh Connerly. Stackpole got Kenneth Grant. Josh Edwards got Donovan Jackson. Mike Renner got Will Johnson. Trapasso got Braden Swinson, the passers from LSU. Don't know why he's that high, but I'm going to leave that alone. Wilson got Darius Alexander, the corner out of Toledo. USA Today has Jonas Salvanet, who was at one point a first-round projection, but it slipped due to Arizona season. And Walter Football has Donovan Jackson as well as far as those moves. But do you have anything left to say about these Chiefs?
No, I mean the Chiefs still, have, Patrick Mahomes. I think with him getting, some weapons back will be helpful to him. I think Rasheed Rice will be a big addition. I think here I will look at Josh Connerly from Oregon or possibly Ariante just as an offensive tackle. I think that they have to get an offensive lineman here at 31.
Totally agree. And hey, if you plan on giving teams fits for the future, you definitely better get these positions in check if you're Kansas City. And last but certainly not least, the Athens Philadelphia Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champs, coming in. They got 8 picks in the draft. They really didn't lose. Did they really lose anything outside? They lost Josh Sweat in free agency, but I don't think they really.
Milton Williams went to the Patriots.
Yeah, Milton Williams, and
I think they brought back Zach Bond. I think.
Yeah, they brought back Zach Bond.
Okay,
but how's you feeling about the Eagles heading into the draft?
Did they bring back Zach Bond? Let me look that up.
Yeah, I think they did. I'm bringing up their depth chart now. Yeah, they did. They brought him back.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. The Eagles don't have really too many needs. Although they did lose some pass rush, I will say the pass rush is probably going to be the big need for them. So I don't want to take that away. I know tight end has been mentioned that they might trade Dallas Goedert. And some rumors. Obviously, the offensive line, they like to invest in the trenches. I think they're okay for now. but I definitely think the defensive line would be an area to look into. I think if James Pierce was to make it to 32, I think that would be a great pick for them. Could be along the lines of Jalen Carter falling. Um, I could also see. I've heard a lot about like Mason Taylor, the tight end from LSU, who's Jason Taylor's son. That could be an option here as well. But there's a lot of D linemen like Nick Gordon, Shamar Stewart, who can be in this range as well. That could be potentially an option. Donovan Aruzuku from Boston College as well. So I think the Eagles are in a great spot. What are your thoughts on the Eagles?
I agree. They don't really have too many major needs. They've been the one team in the NFL over the last couple of years has been really upgrading over the last couple of years, and they've been in a great spot to where even with you losing guys in free agency, you still got a lot of talent still behind you. But I do agree with you. Starting off on the defensive line, Moro Ojomo is definitely not going to be my starter. Going to 2025, they definitely could look into upgrading that side of the ball. Corner, you still want to get better at corner. Yes, you got Quinion Mitchell, you got Cooper DeJean, but why not triple down on it? Yes, you brought in Dory Jackson. I think this is actually a pretty good sleeper move for the Eagles. I think he could be a talented corner there. Linebacker, you got the Kobe Dean, but the Kobe Dean is coming off of an injury. Jalen Hunt is considered a pass rusher, but you got Azeez Ojulari. Zach Vaughn is back. But, I mean, you can't go wrong upgrading your linebacker core. And safeties, I don't like the safety room at all. I definitely could see this being – they could potentially trade up for Malachi Starks or stay in place if he's there. They could potentially look at a Monowari and move up. So this is going to be interesting to see what the Eagles will do right here because, as you see, they got a few needs, but they really are well put together in this Armand mentioned on offense. This could potentially – they could consider possibly getting – they could possibly get another tight end with Dallas Goedert in trade talk. That could be a potential move. They could still – I always would love to see the Eagles get another true wide receiver to actually spread the field out for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, even though their offense is already really talented as it is. But as far as they don't really have too many other needs, they could actually draft their right tackle of the future, considering that Lane Johnson is towards the tail end of his career. But outside of that, they don't have too many major needs. But they could definitely do some work, and what as great as that roster is, you're set up well to make a splash and go trade up if you got a particular player that you have a need for. But the mocks have Walter Football has been taking Josh Simmons, Donovan Ezraku is being mentioned for one of the pundits. Two of them haven't taken Malachi Starks. Mike Renner has been taking Walter Nolan. Stackpole has been trading completely out of the first round. Padell has been taking Walter Nolan, and Pete Prisco has been taking Nick Amonwori. But is there anything else that you think of for the Eagles at this point? Or do you think we've hit everything with the Eagles?
Yeah, I think we've hit everything with the Eagles. I think, I know wide receiver could be like a later round, but I think just reloading on a defensive line would be the way to go.
Okay, and I got one last thing. I have a mock from an Eagles fan, and this is what their mock was in the draft. They had Andrew Makuba at 32. They got Tyleek Williams at Ohio State, defensive tackle. I really like him. Bringing in Garrett Dillinger, Malachi Moore from Alabama, Jack Nelson, another solid tackle, Jake Brennestool, that's a veteran tight end, Cam Jackson, and getting Jamon Dumas Johnson, former Georgia Bulldog. He went transferred to Kentucky and later in the draft. How do you like this mock?
I like it. I think they, really try to replenish the defensive tackle. I would like to see a defensive end to be selected, but I think kind of along the lines of, the secondary with the safeties, maybe bringing in some reinforcements. I think Mukabu, would be a good safety who has some range. Malachi Moore was one of the leaders on Alabama's team as well. So I think it's a good solid mock draft that will be more of like learning your role as a rookie and then maybe coming in and starting year 2.
I agree. And that is talk on the Eagles. So we have officially finished all 32 teams on this board. Well, let me take that back. There is one team left that has not been discussed. And if you see my hat, you know who we're talking about. Tomorrow, I will be back on here. My boy Arm is welcome to come back on here with me. There's going to be some Falcon fans in here. He's going to probably have to moderate us. We're talking about the Atlanta Falcons tomorrow. That's pick number 15. I left the hometown team for last. There's been craziness still all over. We don't know what we're going to pick. We're the team that you never know what's going to pick until draft night. As you remember, we picked Michael Penix Jr. last year. So Falcon fans that are still tuned in, if you need the mock site, I'm going to send it to you. I want to get your mocks because tomorrow will be dedicated to the Falcons. And then Thursday is show day. It's showtime for all of us. So me, Armand, our boy KD, if he's still tuned in, a couple of our guys going to be coming in and out watching the show. So are you looking forward to seeing what us Falcon fans have to say?
Yeah, I remember actually, before moving, I think I was down here in Atlanta actually when the draft happened. I remember that because that was like a big deal, and I remember we were live and seeing that Michael Penix was taken. I was shocked. I was just silent I saw you and I was like, man, I feel bad. It made no sense. But Michael Penix is gonna start year 2, so hopefully he ready to go.
Yes, sir. And that will conclude our show until tomorrow. This has been another episode of the NFL Draft, the Playoff Contenders. Tomorrow, for you non-Falcon fans, you're gonna get a good laugh because I get passionate about my Falcons. So on that note, all right, guys, do you say before we get up out of here?
Nah, man, I'm just ready for the draft, man. Look forward to the show tomorrow on Thursday.
Yes, sir. Until tomorrow, we will see you guys. Y'all have a good rest of the night. If you're watching NBA playoffs, enjoy the playoffs. I think the Lakers should be around the corner soon. So good night, everybody.
All right, take care.